This week, some pretty disturbing videos were leaked of the president's son. Have a look.
So I just weighed out the bag. It's 2.06.
2.07 without the bag.
That was just one of them, and you gotta wonder, why does he keep filming himself with these things? But anyway, the most dropping part is, he keeps filming himself. Why? What is this all about? To discuss it, I am joined by former White House Chief of Staff and U.S. Report regular, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, welcome to the show again, and I need to get your thoughts on this. These videos are so weird, so damaging. He keeps filming himself doing drugs with sex workers and doing God knows what else. But it seems like Hunter and the president are getting off scot-free, not just because of the videos, which you could almost dismiss as, personal peccadillos, but really the real issue to me is Hunter's business dealings.
Yeah, James is going to be back. Let's put the addiction issues aside. Many families, myself included, have dealt with addiction issues, and they're terrible, and those folks need our support and our help, not our political criticism. That being said, what you just said is absolutely right, which is that I had actually go look this story up when you folks called me about it because it's not in the press much over here. The double standard between what would be happening to a Republican. Imagine if this was Don Trump Jr. or Eric Trump and what's happening to Hunter Biden. I remember, James, you probably remember this back in, I think it was 2000, 2001, when the Bush twins, George Bush's kids, got pulled for underage drinking. This was a huge story in the left-wing press in this country. There were headlines saying, oh, what's the problem with the Bush family? Bush hid his DUI. Now the kids are underage drinking. Is there a connection here? There was this upswell of attacks against the family and against the girls because of underage drinking. And yet I had to go look for this story today in the American press. So it's a double standard. There's no question about it. And you were right. At the end of the day, what really matters is the President of the United States. Did he know about what his son was doing in China? Did he know what he was doing in Ukraine? Everybody sort of thinks that he did. That's the issue here. It's not whether or not Hunter Biden had addictions. He did. There's no question about it. But his dad is now the President of the United States and was the vice president for much of this activity. What did Joe do about it? What did he know? And did he allow himself to be influenced by his son's connections? That's the issue.
Well, and there's so much money. You look at the story and the reports of the money going for drugs, for sex workers, for rehab. Where is this money coming from? Who was paying Hunter? And what were they expecting in return? To me, that seems like the really big issue that should be being pursued. But let's move on to the polls. And Joe Biden is not looking good even among Democrats, despite him snapping at the press just before. I'm asking you, though, Mick, I've seen the media start to turn on him, particularly since the Dobbs decision was handed down, overturning Roe v. Wade, and suggests to me that the White House's relatively low-key response on this issue has not satisfied a lot of people in the press who want him to go a lot harder on that fight.
Yeah, there's a famous piece of political history. You remember it from school. You're not old enough to remember it. When Lyndon Johnson decided not to run for re-election back in the 1960s because Walter Cronkite, the leading man of the American press, had turned against him, and he told his advisors, well, once we've lost Uncle Walter, we've lost the country, and he decided not to run. When you hear the left-wing press, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, turning against a Democrat elected official, it means that things are really, really bad. So the simple fact these stories are percolating up and allowed to be sort of discussed openly means that this is an open conversation right now in the back rooms. It's an open conversation with donors, and it's an open conversation with other Democrats who are thinking to run. Gavin Newsom happened to be in Washington, D.C. today or this week, famously photographed in front of the White House. Didn't say anything about Joe Biden. So, yeah, the Democrats are starting to position themselves to run because despite what Biden says, he knows that the voters don't want him.
And just very quickly, on the Republican side, the Ron DeSantis from Florida, he's starting to pull ahead in some polls that I'm starting to see. Given all the stuff that's come out around the Jan 6 hearings and everything else, is he now the guy in the box seat to get the Republican nomination in 2024?
I wouldn't go that far yet. What you're talking about, and it's accurate, is that for the first time, a majority of Republican primary voters, those that will vote in a Republican primary, don't want to see Donald Trump run again. Doesn't mean they won't vote for him if he does. Just means they don't want him to run. And that's the first time we've seen that number move past 50%. Certainly, Ron DeSantis has done an excellent job as the governor of one of our largest states. Very prominent, the work he's done with COVID in Florida. He's done some nice work on the economy down there. So he's earned his place in this discussion. But there's others as well. Tim Scott from South Carolina, Mike Pence is probably going to run, Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley. There's a lot of folks who 6 or 8 weeks ago, before the January 6 hearings, weren't thinking about running, who are probably thinking real hard about running right now.
Big, interesting, deep bench the Republicans have here. Mick Mulvaney, that's all the time we've got for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.